Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC. With me is,
Wolf.
and today, after quite a while, I think it took over a year for us to come back here and for the season to be released in general. But here we are back at the world of Beastars with Beastars season two. So just a quick refresher to, unless you want to check the full episode we did about season one around a year ago, then you can go ahead and do that. But just to catch you up to speed, Wolf, what did you think about Beastars season one? Quickly.
Oh God, do I even remember? That's my
that's
problem.
a that's a good thing. You're about to talk about the second season of something without remembering what you
Listen,
thought about one.
I remember it. I just don't remember what I thought about it. I think I remember overall. I remember liking it. I remember thinking season one was good. I remember thinking, excuse me, that the world building was very well done within season one. That I quite enjoyed it. I also remember, thinking that and reaffirming this thought, I suppose, in season two that God, there's a lot of just underlying sexual tension and just about everything this show does.
Underline, underline. I want to emphasize that underline, and I would also want to emphasize. I highly disagree. There is no, there's no underlining. It's there. It's there.
I mean, some of it is, yeah, for certain scenes, but I think a lot of it's just very much underlined. But I honestly, I'm not sure. I have to, again, like the assumption is that it's on purpose, but it, yeah, I would say like I don't know if they did it on purpose because high school is what this is essentially supposed to be, or because reasons. But yeah,
I'll be
there's
honest with you. There were just sometimes throughout both this season and the previous one where I just thought that the reason they didn't animate these kind of scenes any further is because they had no idea how the physicality of it would work,
mm,
considering
mm.
like considering their head, the shape of their head and their bodies and stuff. It's just how could you do this with these designs? That's at least what I think.
I'm sure the Rule 34 artists found a way.
Yeah, obviously nothing is gonna stop them. But the animators are like, you know what? We don't really have to think and then see if the sensors are okay with it. Yeah. Just slip this by.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would say overall, I remember very much enjoying it and enjoying the world building, especially, and the characters. I thought were
Hmm.
very interesting, very in depth, very a lot to them. I would say.
Yeah. So I agree with you, and I did actually re-listen to the previous episode we did on this just to again kind of remember more clearly where I was standing.
Listen,
But
HC, I'm a professional. I'm a professional who can't even say the word professional properly. I come here prepared, not at all.
mhm. Well, I want to be a bit more prepared, and with that, I
That's
think
why
I
you're not a
still,
professional.
yeah, okay, whatever you say. So, and so I think back then I thought that the show was like Wolf said, really interesting from a world building point of view. I like the characters, and I like this world, and the stuff they can introduce. I think I also said, because you introduced me to this show in the sense that it's an older Zootopia.
Yeah, a
And
Zootopia that's willing to broach on subjects that Zootopia and Disney would never broach on.
yeah,
Right.
and not only did I appreciate it, but I also thought they did this well.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, I also felt like there were a bunch of shonen anime tropes that it tried to follow. And in my opinion, it kind of brought it down at certain points because it felt like there wasn't necessarily any reason for it to be there, or at least at certain scenes. But they put it there because that's what we do. That like we need to check a mark off the list.
Then I'm sure the second season did not sit well with you.
You're right.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Okay, what? Jumping into this, no spoilers yet,
Mhm.
but let me
General
just say that
overall thoughts
it's
first.
yeah, overall thoughts and non-spoilery, non-spoiler discussion. I didn't like, and not just because of we use tropes when just for the sake of tropes. So, or checking a box off the list because although this is a problem for me as well, but I just feel that if season one, introduced you to these characters and their relationship and kind of how this world works and the rules and everything, season two just didn't go anywhere. I didn't feel like anything really advanced. Obviously stuff happens, but it doesn't feel like, yeah, I needed to see this in order to in order to answer questions I had previously. I don't feel like I learned anything new. I don't think the characters really developed. I don't think anything really moved throughout any of this. Like, if they do a season three, which apparently they do, it is confirmed. I
Okay.
can I can honestly say that you can skip this season and you probably won't miss anything.
I wholeheartedly disagree. I think you
I
would miss a
was
lot. I
I I figured you're not going to agree with me, but that's part of the fun. So
no
what
no
did you think?
I I think the focus, like the season two's focus, definitely shifts a lot. I feel season one was more focused on building up the world and just introducing you to the characters, right? But it was
Mhm.
really the world building that you were really getting to know in season one, and a lot of
Yeah.
setup, right?
Mhm.
But season two, I feel, shifts focus very much so, right? Very much, because you're no longer focused on the world, you're focused on the characters, specifically Legoshi and Louis. That's basically the two
Yeah.
biggest focuses here.
Mhm.
And Legoshi's, and a little bit of a spoiler, but the second season is focused on very much Legoshi trying to find out who killed the,
10.
yeah, who? I forgot his name.
He's
I know things.
yeah, I know. I
Tem,
remember.
that's it. Tem.
Yeah, I remember the name was Tem
Yeah, Tem.
because
Tem the
it's an easy
alpaca.
name to remember. Yeah.
Tem the alpaca, that's what it was. It took me a minute.
Mhm.
My apologies. I swear I watched the show, ladies and gentlemen. I am prepared.
Wolf, how many names have I forgotten throughout the 5 years of doing this show? It's okay. We forget sometimes.
The internet will not allow us to forget HC.
Well, the internet can. I don't know what. Anyway, back on topic.
But yeah,
Um,
the story follows Legoshi trying to figure out who murdered Tim and who it was exactly. With, I would say, plot B being Louis' story, where he basically becomes a mob boss.
Yeah, and then there's plot C and plot D
I
there are so many plot
I
lines in
disagree.
this.
I don't really
No,
think there's a plot
I
C or plot D. Personally, I don't feel like that's really there. I feel
well, we'll get to it more when we talk about spoilers. But
fair.
the reason I'm bringing this up is because, again, we're not spoiling anything, but because
Mhm.
the idea with figuring out who murdered Tem, that's something that's established in the first episode. So you're kind
Yeah.
of going into this season knowing it.
Mhm.
So there's this, but then the show also kind of forgets about it for a few episodes, and then suddenly it comes back and it's like, all right, that was a thing. That was a thing which happened, and we kind of didn't talk about until now again.
Well, again,
So
right? That's why I would say. That's why I say, right. The second season is more so focused on the characters, not so much the plot or the story, right? Like, it's
yeah,
like, really, I
and
would say plot A is more so Legoshi's character development. That is plot A, and plot B is Louis' character development. Like, you can
mhm.
say the story is Legoshi trying to figure out who murdered Tim, or say, slight spoilers here, that the story is Louis becoming a mob boss, or etc., etc. Like, you can say that's the story, but really, I feel the focus isn't those things progressing. The focus is their characters progressing,
and in a
which is very much a
sense,
marked, a very marked departure from season one and how it was very much focused on the story it wanted to tell, which was Legoshi's feelings for Haru.
Yeah, and for the record, there's nothing wrong with really shifting focus in
A lot of
because
shows do that.
yeah, and also it's interesting to me personally because if you ask me what kind of story I would prefer, I would usually prefer a character driven story than
Hmm.
a world driven story. Like I would prefer to know more like if you, I prefer to know more the characters than the world personally.
Hmm.
But in this, I think really the hook of the first season was the world, and honestly, we don't really see the world in this season. Like there are points where they are kind of talking about something regarding to the world, but then they just drop it, and we are stuck in this school. And again, again, it may be a bit more character driven, but I also feel like none of these characters are fully interesting. They're not bad, but it's just at some point it's like I don't care about some of these people. Let's just move it along.
I I don't disagree. I think overall I liked season two more than season one, but I can completely understand how season two will be off putting to some people because Legoshi's kind of a boring character. He's fun, he's interesting. I like what they do with him here, at least for me personally, but I can very much see how Legacy would come off as, yeah, I just don't care.
Yeah, because
Especially, I think
again,
if you
because
watch
I
the English
didn't.
dub. I
I watched it in Japanese.
I
I am
have
not
not.
watching.
I've watched the English dub, and yeah, if you find him a boring character, I can understand why, especially if you watch the English dub. Great voice actor, don't get me wrong. I feel like he does a great job as Legoshi, and I think the voice is very, good. It's just it feels very monotone the way he talks, and that
In
might
Japan,
be the
it's kind
character.
of it's also like this in Japanese. And again, it's not really the fact that the voice is monotone or anything, but it's more that it's basically your awkward teenager who sometimes doesn't know necessarily how to act in situations, but he's also but you can tell, but he's not necessarily like unpopular, but he's not necessarily the king of the school. He's just, he's trying to get by. And
Mhm.
again, nothing wrong with this type of character. I like these types of characters, but I don't think he really has anything about him that really makes me, click with him like I would with other characters like him. Because again, I've seen this not just in anime or like in any other animated show, in even live action stuff. I've seen this guy.
So,
I've
go ahead. I'll wait.
so it's like I've seen this guy, and again, the plots that he's kind of gets involved in are plots that on their own wouldn't necessarily be bad, but it's just that when you combine all of them together, and at some point we'll get more into this into spoilers. Legoshi also makes a few decisions that I'm just not getting at all, which honestly, there was one scene, you may know what I'm talking about, where I made me think like, dude, seriously? And because as someone who may
Was
have
it
been in some of it, uh,
was it near the end that you thought that?
it was maybe even near the end, but more so, I would even say mid-season.
I don't know what you're talking about then, but we'll find out. But
Yeah,
yeah, I was
we'll
gonna
see
say,
later, but
for me, I like where they take Legoshi's character, but I like the journey he goes through, but it's the ending where it falls apart for me. I get
yeah,
what
the
they're trying to
ending.
do with the ending, but I feel like the ending is the weakest part of the season because I feel like it undermines a lot of Legoshi's journey before this.
And the ending is also the reason why I said I don't really think the season matters in the grand scheme of things
I
because And this is something that, granted, we need to wait for season 3 in order to see
Mm.
what they're gonna do, and before I can make a judgment. But honestly, if season 3 is just gonna ignore all of this, like this ending suggests, then honestly, all we've been through in this season is practically pointless.
I don't think it was practically pointless, but I don't disagree with you that the ending does kind of make it feel that way. It makes it, at least for Legacy, anyways, it makes it feel like his journey was what was the point of it?
Yeah, and
It does give off that
it is a
vibe.
problem, and it is kind of a problem when he's the main character.
Mm.
He is the character you are coming to see. He is the main guy.
I
So
would say Beastars season 2, especially near the end, has very much a similar problem to BNA, Brand New Animal, where they spend most of the season building up this particular story and this particular plot and these ideals and ideas, and when you get to the ending, you find out that, oh, all that stuff you built up is now undermined by your ending that goes against all that stuff you just built up.
yeah,
All the stuff you
I
built
can
up
see.
was really good, but then
Mhm.
you came out with this, oh, here's a thing that happened, and now you've just undermined all of that. And I think once we get into spoiler territory, you'll kind of, we'll be able to explain a bit more. But
Mhm.
I think that gives a good, if you've watched BNA, Brand New Animal, if you've watched that, then I think that gives at least a decent idea of kind of what we're getting at without spoilers
Mhm.
yet.
Well, with that being said, shall we go into spoilers?
Sure.
Okay, then. So if you haven't seen Beastars season 2, or if you haven't read the manga, I guess. By the way, no experience with the manga. I have no idea how closely this follows or something, but keep in mind that no experience with the manga. I assume you, Wolf, don't have any experience with it as well.
No.
Okay. So not if something is like accurate to the manga or different or whatever, we don't know, and honestly, it shouldn't necessarily be loyal or disloyal to the manga in order to be good, and for
Hmm.
us to make our own conclusions regarding the story. So, with that said,
The books don't
uh,
matter.
spoilers in 3, 2, 1.
Unless we say they matter.
So we are opening the spoilers thing with we talked about how there's
Well,
no world building.
I want to jump right into one
Yeah,
small thing that's real simple and quick.
sure.
I gotta give a mark against season 2. They got rid of that stop motion intro.
Yeah, actually, that I didn't really mind the
No, the
new
new intro's
intro.
not bad. It's just I loved the jazz and that stop motion. That was so
Mhm.
well done. But I have to imagine that probably cost a lot of money to do, and doing a second one may not
Maybe.
have been on the cards. But I would have
Mhm.
loved to have seen a second one and what they might have done with it. But I do understand. But still, I got to give a
Mhm.
mark against you. No stop motion intro, no jazz. Boo.
No
Thumbs
jazz is
down.
definitely no jazz is definitely something that I cannot let it slide. But what can you do? You
Mm.
sometimes you're gonna take a few hits. So we said in the non-spoiler section that this season basically ignores the world building, and
I don't
what
think it
annoys
ignores it.
me.
It's just not focused
Wait,
on it.
wait, wait, wait. That what I said about this, it's not as big of him. It's not as important as in season 1.
Sure.
And the annoying thing is that pretty early on, I think it's like in the second episode or something, they have this like board meeting of like all the school
Mm.
principals,
Mhm.
and where they go like each school kind of needs to choose its own B star in order to actually start you know, and so to kind of keep order, to kind of keep order and stuff, and it's like, okay, you know what? That's actually an interesting idea, which kind of connects to the previous season, because in the previous one, we also kind of got this vibe of these kids are also talking about what they're gonna do after they finish high school. What are they gonna do after they're out of there? And Legoshi obviously had this entire thing of, was it the mafia that he beat up, I think, to save Haru. So okay, let's go with this. Let's actually develop it. Disappears.
Well,
Not doesn't matter.
you're not wrong, but I do like at the very least how you get this. The principal of the school, of the main school we're focused on, right, actually stands up and says, I'm against this because, why do we need to put all of this, drama and these hopes and these ambitions of adults onto the shoulders of these children and make them shoulder this whole thing of being the shining star that's supposed to unite predators and, you know, that's supposed to unite, what's the word for it?
Yeah, I know
Herbivores
there are
and
yeah,
carnivores.
there we
That's
go.
the word. That's how they refer to
Yeah.
it. I could not think. Sorry. Yeah, like that's like I love the speech he gives. I love how he stands up against it, and all the adults in the room are like, "Yeah, no, screw you, do this," and he just has to, fine, whatever. Yeah, I love that. Right, I love how that's all set up. But you are right. It does disappear, and you just don't hear anything about it. And they kind of parallel it with Legoshi being approached by like the guard of the school, who's this boa constrictor, the first snake we've seen in the show, which is interesting. I
Yeah.
forgot,
By the way,
reptiles were a thing,
again,
and it kind of just blew me out. It kind of blew me away a little bit. Like,
yeah,
reptiles are a thing. I forgot about that. This is weird, but
and
also makes
again,
complete sense.
yeah, and also again, this snake shows up. You think they're gonna do something with it? Nope.
Well, it also made me realize, oh god, yeah, there'd be snakes in Zootopia. We never saw a snake in Zootopia. How would
No,
you
we
do a
didn't.
snake in Zootopia? And that just took me down a wild road that I stopped thinking about and didn't want to think about it anymore because I don't want to know how they would do a snake in Zootopia. But I also
And
kind
I
of do
think
want to know.
Yeah, and I think the creators did because again, this snake, interesting idea, not coming back. Like this disappears again. And then there's this entire thing of Legoshi trying to find Thames murderer, which I will say once we get to it, and again, first two episodes talk about it, then suddenly in episode 7 we find out who the murderer is. Like, oh, right, this was going on. I forgot with everything else. So, but the thing is that when we see the murder scene, where we see, I forgot the bear's name, but when we see the bear, kill Tem, that was actually a really solid scene, which again connected to the themes of the show
Mm-hmm.
for both seasons. It was a really good scene, a really hurtful scene, also heartwarming in some places. This was a scene that I saw and I was like invested 100%. I want to see more of that.
And you're talking about how it shows the relationship between uh
The bear and Tim, the bear who killed
yeah,
them before them.
Riz and Tim,
Yeah,
right?
Riz.
Yeah, it is
Yes.
like it's dark in its own way of how he convinces himself that things weren't the way they were, but also again you do see this relationship between a carnivore and an herbivore, and how Tim is trying to be kind to Riz and trying to get to know his side of things, right? It's just that Riz loses himself in that kind of attention, and again, like, this is where I come back to, it very much feels like Riz was falling in love with Tim, right?
Which it's not necessarily a problem,
No,
if this
no.
is what they're going for. Like, I didn't really care if they intended it to be like romantic or platonic. I really couldn't care less. I just really liked that scene. For
Hmm.
I was so invested in it. And again, after this happens, we just don't do anything with it. This beautiful scene was for nothing. It
I
it annoys me so
I don't
much
feel like
that
it's for nothing. It does. The focus of that is how Riz sees. Again, Riz doesn't see himself as killing Tim, right? Like, he sees, what he did as making Tim a part of himself. And you see him kind of again warp all of that in his mind to be something that it wasn't, and something
which
that's
again,
special that only he could have with Tim, right? No one else
yeah,
could create something like that, which does come
which
back later with
again,
Legoshi and Louis.
Yeah, a bit, but yeah, again, it comes back later, but it's also but again, it's one of those things that by the time it comes back, you just forget all about it because there are other things going on. Because again, Shonen Trope anime, Legoshi suddenly because like starts training himself like physically and mentally to resist the urge to eat meat, and it's like okay, you know what? It's not a bad idea for a plot, especially, especially with the entire thing of him having a romantic thing for Haru and they can't really be together because, predator, non-predator. Okay, not a bad idea, but suddenly we forget the murder mystery in order to
I mean,
focus on that,
you
and
say
then we
romantic
go.
thing for Haru, but he dumps her this season. And
Okay,
for good reason. Like he says, like,
will
go ahead. I'll wait.
we'll get back to this because I have an entire thing with their relationship, which we will
Eh,
get
fair.
to.
I kind of do too. So go ahead.
Yeah, so, but again, we are jumping in. So, again, if the murder mystery and the training thing were two different arcs in two different seasons or two different characters, maybe, I would probably like both of them a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But as is, it just feels like one takes away from the other, and and at some point, I just couldn't care. I
I,
honestly stopped caring.
I will admit, to me, I felt like one led into the other, but I will admit, right, that it did feel like the murder mystery, like, okay, we know who it is, and it happens so abruptly where Legacy just says, yeah, I know it was you, and Riz is like, found out, huh? And then just me angry, me Hulk smash. Oh, there's someone here, me wait. Oh, they know too. Now I have to decide if I kill them both or not and how to do it. And that's just it, right? And then we go on from there with this kind of quick intro, this new character that we're introduced to a little bit earlier, now finding out as well, and both him and Legacy just trying to figure out what to do with Riz, right?
Yeah.
And Riz trying to figure out what to do with them. But it's I do agree with you. I think it would have been nice to try and have a bit more of the murder mystery going on and trying to figure it out with Legoshi and figure out a way
Mm-hmm.
to resolve that in a different way. But
Mm-hmm.
and then that could have been the season 2, and then season 2 could have led into, oh, Legacy had to do something to stop Riz that kind of, mortified him or did something to really change him up, and that leads into him wanting to swear off meat and trying to go through all the training stuff to resist the urge to eat meat entirely, and change up his viewpoint and how he views the world and everything. And then that leads
Mm-hmm.
into everything with Louis, right? Is how it
Yeah.
probably could have been done, and arguably might have been better. Maybe it may not have, but I do agree, because you get both in the same season, it does hurt them both, right? I don't think it
Mm-hmm.
hurts them so much that it destroys the season and makes it completely unwatchable, but I do understand where you're coming from. And I don't disagree that it would have been nice to have more of
I
the
wouldn't
mystery going
say
on.
I wouldn't call this season unwatchable. I'm just saying it's flawed. There's a
That's again,
difference.
that's fair. I don't completely agree with you, but I completely understand why you feel that way. And I don't completely disagree with you.
Okay, so agree to disagree. Moving on. So, should I
Agree
just
to
talk about?
agree to disagree to disagree.
Yeah. So, should we just talk about Legoshi and Haru real quick, just to get that thing out of the way, because that's one of the things that really
I
bothered me
mean,
in this season.
again, right, it comes back to this season is very much focused on Legacy and his character, and to the side
Which
Louis and his character, and Haru just does not fit into that. And
Yeah,
so she's
and
just
this
out.
is and this is one of those things that I would actually kind of call a problem. It's not really a detriment to the quality of the show or
Mm,
anything, and I'm not saying that they needed to do this in order to be better. I'm just saying that it feels a bit odd when Haru was one of the main characters in the previous season. Like it
She was the
was
main
her.
focus anyway. She was the goal, and then now she's just
Yeah.
not.
And
And
yeah, and you could say, oh, she's at least not the goal anymore. She's not just the girl that Legoshi gets at the end because he didn't get her in the first place. But
which was,
it,
I think, was good the way they did that.
yeah,
But
no, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he should have. What I'm saying though is that it feels like that even though she wasn't she is still seen in this season as the goal. She is
mhm.
still, because other than that she barely shows up in this entire season, and she's kind of a nothing character. She's in the background, and whenever we see her, she all she does is just basically bitch about Legoshi being an asshole.
Which is
Which for
fair
the
though.
Yeah, which is kind of a problem also because he is an asshole, and because he is an asshole, because okay, let's go over this. Mind you, let's go over this. HC, the total relationship professional expert, even though he really isn't, but
The
whatever.
professionals here.
Let's go over this.
Disclaimer:
So
we do not have any knowledge of what we're talking about. Don't
I
take
think
advice
I
from
do.
us.
I think even though I've not really been in a serious relationship in my life. I've seen people suffer because of those things, and some of these people were actually close friends of mine. So you know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna bitch
Disclaimer:
anyway.
if you take the advice given here at the Outcast, we are not held responsible for anything that does or
This
does
is
not happen
not.
for you or to you.
This is not uh, another disclaimer to Mr. Disclaimer. This is not an advice. What I'm saying here is is based on personal
No,
experiences,
that's fair.
and friends' experiences.
Fair. Very
So
fair.
hear me out on that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so in season one, we kind of again Haru was kind of like Goshi's love interest, and she also kind of started developing feelings for him, and all that. And then, but the season kind of ends with them realizing they might be better off as friends. Which, okay, cool. You know what? Sometimes it does happen when a boy and a girl work
I mean,
better as
at its
platonic.
heart, right, this is also high school drama, right? So you're always going to have
Yeah,
that boy and girl get together. They split up. They get back together. They split up again, that sort of deal. Because high school
just
drama.
because you can, yeah, just because, but again, just because it's a trope doesn't mean you have to follow it.
It
You can
always
also do
has to
something else.
happen. You always have to do it in high
No,
school drama. See, that is just law for high school dramas that the main character has to
no,
get
it's
together, then
not.
separate, then get together again. It's law, HC. You can't deny the
No, it's
law.
not law. And you know what? If it's law, fuck the law. Okay,
The
let's become
natural order of the
outlaws in this.
you can't deny the natural order of the universe, HC, and the natural order of the universe states that high school drama has to have main character get together, separate, get back together, and again at the end. That's just
Then do it well. And
it's
now I'm
law.
gonna talk, I'm gonna talk about why I don't think this is done well. Because okay, whatever you want to say, high school drama, yada yada yada, and about the first season,
Mhm.
fine. Because I didn't mind it there. I didn't mind it there. It was actually pretty well developed. Again, it was kind of the focus, so whatever. But they do end it also with, you know what? Let's just try and be friends for a while. Which okay, and it's, you could argue that it's kind of a cocktease, and you know that eventually they're gonna get together anyway, so why delay the inevitable? But you know what? I also appreciate that there could be a guy and a girl being friends.
Well, you also again they came at it.
Wait,
Well, I
wait.
just want to point out real quick they came at it from that unique perspective of prey versus predator and how that may and may not work. Right. The
Yeah.
problem is the second season kind of drops that problem.
And okay, so that, you know what? Jumping into this, what's it? How did season two fuck this up? One, like you said, suddenly that end goal isn't there. The season talks about it, but not necessarily in terms of what keeping these two apart from each other. Two, okay, fair. They are trying to be friends, but there's still some romantic sparks here and there. Again, okay, that's kind of realistic because again, I had those moments where I liked a girl, she didn't, and it took a bit, and it took a bit of time to build this back up. But as much as it's hard, you're getting through that. That's fine. I'm actually glad that they chose to show this. But then it just comes to this entire thing where Haru is just kind of pissed at him for always ignoring her and not really taking an initiative. It's like, didn't you guys have some sort of agreement back when? And like you basically slept with the entire school, so you can't really blame him for this.
Well,
And
she also gets
then,
pissed at him for being
wait,
too forward too, because he does ask her to marry him.
and that's the other thing. That's the other thing I'm about to bring up. So then she's complaining. She's complaining that he's too forward with asking her to marry him, but to her credit, she's right. Why would he suddenly propose to her if one, they're not even together, and two, you barely talk to each other in this season?
This was
Like,
also this was also after he said, this was also after he broke up with her and said, I need to get stronger, so I can't be with you. I can't protect you yet. I need to be stronger still. But then he comes back and says, we should get married, and it's like,
yeah,
roller coaster.
Yeah, a roller coaster doesn't begin to describe it. This is just lunacy. This is mental lunacy.
I mean, this is go up, down, just instantly, and there's just no stop. And it's just, I love it, but also, wow.
And after this, so he proposes to her. She's rightfully upset at this because, pro tip, guys, do not immediately propose to a girl you're crushing on.
I do
Try
kind
and
of
build a relationship before this.
I do kind of love the scene though, where he's just like, "You're right, we should get married," and she's just like, eyes wide, mouth agape. What? And I love how you see someone in the background like walking through the library, putting up books, and they just fall completely over. Like, the fuck? Like, did you really?
Again, but the thing is that even if they're playing it for laughs, it's still a dramatic moment for both characters, and it just comes out of nowhere for no reason. And then we don't see these two interact until the final episode, where Legoshi suddenly said that he's going to drop out of high school to continue his training or whatever, and Haru basically tells him that he's an asshole for doing this, leaves, and then he starts considering if he's actually gonna go along with the plan of dropping out of high school. So it's like, what actually happened here? What is up with these two people? What is going on? I just like, because I honestly, I'll tell you the truth. I have no idea how far along the manga is, or if they actually get together in the manga. At this point, who cares? But I'm just telling you, if these two are gonna end up together by the end of this show, I will tell you right now, expect the lawyers they're gonna hire for their divorce to be extremely rich by the end of this.
I love it when shows actually do the whole, hey, these two characters, they might work out, they might not, but maybe they can figure it out. Maybe and they do like each other. Maybe they can figure it out. Maybe they can work things out. But I do kind of enjoy it when shows say, hey, sometimes relationships like that just don't work out. That the person you thought you liked, you turn out, when you learn more about them, actually you don't like them. And I mean, again, maybe you'd be as good a friend, maybe you'd work out as friends, but being together in a relationship just isn't going to work out for you and that person.
And that's perfectly fair. The question is, can you tell me for certain this was the intention? Because I am not sure. I just think that they're playing up the he said, she said drama until the climax where they are gonna get together.
I feel this is something that I can at least give them a little bit of leniency on and say, since we know for a fact there will be a season 3, I can say maybe that changes up some stuff. But based on season 2, I don't hate what they did, but I can very much agree with you that it doesn't feel as well developed of a relationship as season 1 felt. Season 1 felt like season 1 left it in an open-ended area too, but that open-ended area felt like, yeah, this works. I like what they've done with this. I like where they might be going with this relationship. I can see this failing, but I can also see this working, and I can see it failing and working for a variety of different reasons, right? Season
Mhm.
2 kind of just puts it on. I don't
Who
see this
knows?
working. And even if
Yeah.
they did get together at the end based off of season 2, I feel like they really shouldn't be.
Mhm. And eventually, like I said, if these two are the end game couple for this
I'll tell
anime,
you, talking about relationships, I'll tell you who I think does work really well together, and definitely there was so much
let's
sexual
let's see who.
tension underlying
Yeah.
everything
Oh,
about them
yeah.
this
Who?
entire season. Louis
Who?
and Legacy, like, damn.
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
Those two gay for one another.
Just to make sure, Louis is the reindeer, right?
Yeah, Louis of the deer. Louis the red
Yeah.
deer, yeah.
Mhm. But before we get to him, can I just say also that I forgot the name. There's the female wolf.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. Let me see if I can figure out who that is real quick.
But basically, they also the other thing that kind of bothers me with this is that they even in season one they kind of
Juno.
hinted that the yeah, Juno. So they also built that kind of thing up where there might be this love triangle with her, Legoshi, and Haru. And in the and again, this is kind of seems to like they go again in this he said, she said, and it's like
Yeah.
why not? And it's like what if you're gonna try and do this high school drama thing, then why not let Legoshi actually try and date her? Because Haru is clearly
I,
not an option at this point,
I,
and that would make things more interesting because then all you get is basically a jealous, a crush jealousy. And again, there's this scene where like she's helping Haru in the in the greenhouse and everything,
mhm.
and they bond. Again, goes nowhere. These two are not.
That
This is
one.
just yeah. This just
No,
stops.
don't say
Uh,
yeah. I disagree with you on this one because Juno, that goes nowhere because Juno absolutely does not want to do anything with Haru because she doesn't want Haru to change her mindset. Because I loved something that season 2 did do, and that was we get to see 3 different takes on this world and how carnivores and herbivores are viewed. And you have Juno's take where carnivores and herbivores are basically supposed to keep this wall between them where you're as a carnivore you're supposed to be around and make herbivores feel safe, but there's always this separation. There's this line that you just cannot cross, that you're never
which
supposed to
again,
cross, and she
it's
firmly believes in that.
interesting.
Basically,
Yeah,
Juno believes in the status quo, how the world is already set up. She firmly believes in that, and that's the way things should be. Legacy
and
takes a very
that's
different approach.
interesting.
Let me
But the
let me finish.
but there's
Yeah, but
okay.
I do get what you're getting ready to say though. But yeah, Legacy takes a very different approach of no, we need to cross those boundaries and intermingle and mix way more in order to understand ourselves and to better be able to curb and our urges and change who and what we are and change our nature even. And he proves that that can be possible and even be done through what he does this season. Whereas Louis does the exact opposite, where he doesn't view it as carnivore and herbivore, predator and prey. He views it as just winners and losers, and that if you're going to be a winner, you have to be willing to do the things that need to be done, right? He takes a very darker approach to it, a very also crossing the line, but in a very different way, in a much darker way even. But I get you feel that they go nowhere with that.
And again, I would love to be proven wrong in the next season if they're gonna do something with it. But I just feel again it's built up for nothing so far.
I don't feel they go nowhere with it, but I feel again it wasn't the focus, right?
And
Good or
I
bad.
think, and I think that's the main problem. I even might have said it in the non-spoiler thing. There are a lot of things where you say it's not the focus. It's not the focus, and then what is the focus?
Again, I
What
think
are we focusing on?
I do think the
Because I don't
focus
think
is Louis and Legacy and their characters' journeys within the season, but I do agree with you. I think the season is very busy. And I say it's very busy because I come back to what I said before, right? How I think it would have been better if the focus was on figuring out who murdered Tim and Legacy having to do something in that moment that he very much regrets and that very much kind of scars him, right? Kind of changes him, and that leads into a third season where we have our training arc and Legacy developing this mindset that he develops, and then you get to see that clash with Louis and Juno's mindsets, and it ends up being in the third season ends up being this thing of dueling ideals where you as the audience get to decide who do you think is right in all of this. Is it Juno who wants to keep the status quo because it does work, or even though it's flawed, or is it Louis who's willing to completely change up the status quo but do it in a very underhanded and dark way even, or is it Legacy who's probably taking the hardest path of all, but and is also again flawed because it's not going to work, but is trying something radically different that can make good changes if it does work, right? Like you get to decide between that, but we don't get that. And unfortunately, again, as I said, Legacy's entire journey and his ideal is undermined by the end of this season, which is my greatest issue with this season.
Well, I guess the last thing there's to talk about is Louis, because he's really the only thing we didn't discuss in full.
Louis becomes a mob boss, although
that came out of nowhere.
I mean,
That
yeah, I didn't expect it, but I didn't. I enjoyed it though. It was fun. I actually I think Louis and his journey was probably my favorite part of this season, to be honest. And like his relationship with
actually, I would
the
agree
lion.
because again there was this whole thing, because in the first season I don't want to say he was a villain, but he was like an obstacle for Legoshi in terms of both Haru and just ideologies.
Yeah, which was great.
He was an obstacle, and this season actually starts it up well with him leaving the school. So he doesn't seem bitter towards Legoshi. He doesn't seem to be angry that he's going. He's just taking it in stride and trying to find his place in life.
Well, he's found his place, or he feels he's found his place, right? And he accepts his place in life, and decides, well, if this is my role, if this is my position in life, then I'm going to use it to the advantage and betterment of other people if possible. And he does do that.
Yeah,
he takes a mob and turns it into kind of a good thing, quote unquote.
Yeah, which again, I like this idea. I think becoming the head of the mob is a bit of a leap, but also, you know what? Okay, sure. Let's actually see where this is going, and let's see what kind of thing he can actually come up with from the mob. And we see that he is doing some good throughout the season. Like, not all of it. Actually, one of the things that legit cracked me up is that he's holding a gun to his father's face, forcing him to sign this contract. I actually kind of cracked up at this moment. I don't know. There was something so ridiculous about it to me.
But it is like a really good character scene, though, too. I understand what you're saying, like, but it is a really tense character moment, and
and I think that's also because I get the tension from this scene. I get what they were trying to do, and I think it's a good scene. But I also just think maybe we just reached that part a bit too early than we needed to, or maybe it just doesn't belong in this particular show. It's something about it just felt a bit ridiculous to me.
That's fair. I mean, I think I loved how you had them showing Louis eating meat, right? Like the Shishigumi, the lion card mob, wouldn't accept him if he couldn't eat meat and had to be like them. And again, like contrast with what they were showing with Legacy, right? And it works really well. And when it is just Legacy's story, Legacy's, arc and journey and his training bit combined with Louis and the mob and his kind of progression, it actually, I think that's when season 2 is at its strongest, especially when the two interact. And again, that's when you see that really heavy sexual underline and sexual tension underline the relationship between these two.
In the ending, especially. In the ending,
especially.
In the climax. In the climax. Haha, I'm sorry. That was but that point where he actually tells Legoshi like, hey, I want you to feast on my flesh. And it's like, I'm like,
yeah, they did that on purpose. There's no way that writing was just.
And then Legoshi is like, if you're gonna be the one, I'm gonna like, enjoy every second of it. And
well, like, how he tells him like, I'm not doing this because you asked me to. I'm doing this because I chose to, because I want to. Like, that's why I'm eating your foot. And it's like, and the words they use too, again, like, some writers in the writing room were very proud of themselves.
For the record, if you want to imply that these two might have had gating for each other, nothing wrong with it. Just don't tell me it's not.
Yeah, the way the show writes it, if the show's not trying to imply it, I would be shocked. Because it's just way too on the nose.
It's one of those, I'm not sure.
I don't think it'll happen, but the show feels like, we want you to feel this way.
I'm not sure if this is the right way to call it, but I think it's kind of like the Kingdom Hearts problem that you could probably say, because that you could say that the writers intended to show like really strong platonic friendship, but the way they write it, the way they show it, and some of the other thing, it's like, no, these two are lovers.
I mean, to be fair, what is love but strong friendship?
It's more to it than that, but I don't know. I wouldn't go to one of my friends and be like, oh, I'm not gonna eat your foot because you told me to, but because I want to. I don't know. It's not feeling right at all.
Fair. I don't think many people would go to their friends and eat their foot, but good to know.
They say that cannibalism might actually be the way to solve some of this world's problems, but one step at a time here. Anyway, what I did want to say, I am actually not sure what to feel regarding. How do I say? I'm not sure what to feel regarding the entire. He only ate the foot. Like,
the idea is that was Louis' tie to his past, right? That had his brand on him, where he was supposed to just be a morsel of meat for someone to eat in the past before he was bought by his dad.
Mm-hmm.
My problem with the ending, as I've mentioned before, right, is that Legoshi's entire journey is built upon the idea of not eating meat, of him getting stronger through abandoning his predatory nature, his meat-eating nature, right?
See what I mean? We had this entire arc throughout this, and then how does he defeat the guy? He does the exact same thing he fought so hard not to do.
And his entire thing is, and the way they explain it is like, Legoshi says, I'm not doing this because you asked me to or because I want to. I'm doing this because I chose to, but I don't need to. And it's like,
but it doesn't really.
But the fact that you still do it is still, still did it.
Not only that he still did it, but it also like turned him into the Hulk or a werewolf. Where, like,
it even showed him getting stronger, which was the entire reason he trained to get stronger. But he got stronger just by eating meat. So what was the point of the training? You went against the entire training.
It's like you can't really show a character trying to, get rid of a quote unquote addiction if they say, oh, I didn't do it. Like, because it's like saying, oh, I smoked during rehab because it was my decision and not because I I chose to do this stuff or something. It's like, no, you're lying to yourself.
Hey,
You know what it is? You know what it is? It's one of those people that say, "Oh yeah, music actually helps me to study better, so I listen to music while I study." No, it's not. Stop lying to yourself.
some people do, but I'm not
No,
going to.
no, like don't get me wrong. Multitasking, like listen to music while you study, that's fair. I even used music for my essays that I wrote. But saying that the music gets me to do better or improves my studying, no.
I have no comment. I'm it's that person. I can't say. All I can say is,
Mm,
all I can say is send your angry letters and comments to @HC.
yeah, by all means,
I,
argue with me
all I
about
can
facts.
Fair enough. All I can say, right, is that it just it undermines his journey. I feel, and maybe some people come in and say, no, it doesn't undermine it, and here's the reasons why it doesn't undermine it. But to me, based on my watch, based on my understanding of the show and the ideals that Legacy puts forward as a character and his journey, I feel like to have it end with him eating meat in order to win, quote unquote,
Mhm.
it does undermine his journey. Even if you argue that, oh, well, Legacy didn't have to kill Riz, he ended up changing Riz's mindset and showing Riz the error of his ways, and which does lead back to Legacy's, journey and his ideals to some degree, but I feel like they still could have had him do that without having to eat Louis' foot.
Yeah.
They could
And
have done it that way.
also, that kind of leads us to the ending. Wanna fill the viewers in, even though they saw it probably?
I mean, we just talked about it. Legacy ate Louis' foot.
No, what like the epilogue? What happens after?
I
Because like
mean,
Legoshi does go to jail for this, or at least for a small while.
I
He's
mean,
convicted of
he
some.
gets
He's
arrested
convicted.
and he has like a permanent record that he has that he's a devourer, that he's committed a devouring, which will mark him for the rest of his life, etc., etc. Which I assume they're going to bring that back up into season 3, and I guess season 3 is going to be focused on quote
Which
unquote the
this is
Beastar.
again, for the record, I had no idea that season three was happening until after I finished this. I saw that after, but when they showed us, I was like, oh, that's at least an interesting way to end it. But then they're just like, well, no, like Legoshi was, let on parole earlier than intended, and it's like, oh, okay, so guess we're not gonna touch about those interesting stuff. Like, what kind of punishment does they give people who actually eat other animals? Like, what what is the point then? If you're going to put him in jail, then the second after it's like, oh no, he was
Death by
actually
being eaten.
released. Hmm.
That is the punishment.
Yeah, well, too bad this was not shown in the show. It's just like, okay, it was in
No,
jail.
I'm
Oh, actually, it was
joking.
a good.
That may not be. I don't know what the punishment is. Don't listen to me. I'm joking. Although if we come back to season and we see Riz being eaten, well, I guess I was right.
Mhm.
I don't want to be right. That would be really dumb. But okay.
Ugh. Point is, I think they could have just ended it with Legoshi being in prison
Or
and saved the next for the future
or
seasons.
just ended it showing not him being in prison, just ended it showing that like devouring and that being like
Mhm.
marked on his like record, and that's how they end
Mhm.
it, and we don't see him out of prison, out anywhere
Yeah,
yet or
because
anything.
we get that scene I already talked about him saying he's gonna drop from high school and Haru just hates him for it, and he starts reconsidering his decision, and it's like this could have been a good way to open, kind of set up the tone, but guess this is our ending shot. We now have to wait another year or so before we see how this ends.
I mean, it at least gives an idea of yeah, the focus is probably going to be on the Beastar and who's going to be the Beastar, right?
Which,
And
about freaking time, 2 seasons in, like three by the time the next one is out. But you get what I mean.
I mean, we all know it's going to end up being Juno because reasons.
Hmm. Yeah, which again, why not show us that? Like you had Juno as kind of a focus on some sort of focus in this season, so why not actually show it?
My assumption, right,
Uh,
is season 3 will be like the ideals of Juno, Louis, and Legoshi clashing to some degree. I wonder. I don't know if that's going to make for as interesting a season, right?
yeah.
I feel like,
Hmm.
as I said, right, I think ending thoughts, right? Season 2 is, in my opinion, very enjoyable, very interesting season. I think it goes into a lot of interesting ideas. I think it drops the ball on those ideas at the very end. And I think it is hurt by trying to do too much within one season. I do think it could have been split into two different plots for two different seasons, and it might have been better for it. I can't say for certain. But overall, still enjoyed my time with it very much. I still think it was, I was still, interested in it throughout and where they were going to go with it and what might come up next. Right.
I'd say that I'm interested to see, actually, actually the stuff that's interesting, like who is gonna be the Beastar? What is gonna happen with Legoshi if he decides to drop out of school and continue the training? Like, do show me the stuff that matters, and get rid of the stuff that doesn't.
A question for you.
Yeah.
I personally like ignoring the foot fetish.
Mhm.
I actually did kind of like the ending to this. It felt open ended, but it felt like, yeah, I'm happy with, if I never get anything after this, I'm happy with that. I think I enjoyed my time with this enough to say that, yeah. So
I'd
if you
say
knew for a fact that this was the end, you were getting nothing after this, you think you would enjoy that more or less?
honestly, I think I would have just left it with the same sort of eh once this was all said and done because again I didn't know that there was gonna be a season three until after I finished this. So as far as I was concerned, this was it. This was
Mm.
the final thing that this show was ever gonna pull out, and for me it was okay. You know, it wasn't ideal, but it wasn't an offensive cliffhanger or something. It's just like okay, he's gonna do his own thing. Cool, maybe I don't know. So
I guess.
neither way, neither here nor there.
Uh, Final question for you. Any particular
Yes.
favorite or least favorite episode?
Nothing particular because again, this is one of those shows that each episode, because yeah, you can watch it, episode at night and follow completely fine, but it's also one of those that it works better if you actually see everything
Mm,
at once
that's fair.
because it connects a bit more. But I will say that, what, if I have to choose, then I think it's episode 7 where we see, how Thames murder actually went because it has an actually really good scene, which I like.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's actually probably one of the stronger scenes in the show beyond any particular scene with Louis and Legacy. I think I would hand it. I think one scene, two scenes I would hand it to that I personally enjoyed a bit more was when when Legacy gets caught by the Shishigumi, and you have this whole thing of Louis actively thinking Legacy has fallen to the darkness and become dependent on meat, and how you kind
Yeah.
of hear this inner monologue of Legoshi being Louis's light, right? Which again, just going
Hmm.
back to that sexual tension underlying everything here, and
Hmm.
you have them have their discussion with the Shishigumi kind of all pointing guns at Legacy, and Legacy just kind of staring them all down as he kind of holds Louis captive to some degree. Like a lot of good stuff there in that scene, I think. And one other scene that was just had me going, what, the entire time was Legoshi's, I guess the only way to describe it is his drug trip. His, but he
Yeah,
eats that
this.
moth and gets high essentially and just goes on a wild ride.
Yeah,
Eh,
those were actually pretty well animated and also had some interesting
it was well
stylistic
done.
choices
It's
because
just
yeah, because they
okay.
weren't colored, they were just black with some with the lines being colored. It actually looked
Mm-hmm.
really damn good. It looked really damn cool.
I mean, yeah, it's worth admitting. Like season 2, also, briefly looks just as good, if not better, than season 1. Like they do exceptionally well animating this for it being CGI animation. Like Studio Orange is very talented. A lot of great people working at that studio. Artists, animators, lighting people, all of the staff. Like you're doing a great job, in my
Yep.
opinion.
Yeah, what, just to really say, the animation is still like the outside at least looks great. The animation
Mm-hmm.
itself can be a bit something about the CG doesn't look all the way amazing, but
I've never
it,
personally
it,
noticed it, at least. Like
it
it's not something that sticks out to me if it
yeah,
is.
no, it's still a good looking show. It's like the world is well designed. Some of the character designs are actually really cool, and so yeah. Overall, I would say that artistically the show is really well done.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So, anything else?
I think we've covered it all. I think we've, yeah, hit the nail on the head for Beastars Season 2. It is good with problems.
I wouldn't say good. Okay.
I mean, you're wrong, though. That's just a fact, so it's okay.
If you say so. Anyway, so this was all for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed it. What are your thoughts about Beastars Season 2? What would you want to see for Beastars Season 3? You can tell us all about this in the comment section below, on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team, on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C. So until next time, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And we will see you all next time. Take care.
Bye bye.